Welcome back, friends and astrology lovers. I'm Yvonne Davis, author, astrologer, and life transformation coach. And I have the full moon for you today, May 7th. So let's go and look at that chart. And by the way, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Click like on this video, share with friends and family and on social media, and feel free to leave your comments. So the full moon, we have the sun in Taurus at 17 degrees, 20 minutes here. And Taurus rules the second house, which is our values. It's also how we access resources. These are resource houses. And the moon is in Scorpio at 17 degrees, 20 minutes opposite the sun. That's a full moon. All right, so let's talk about what this means. Because it's in the resource house, that means that it is going to impact resources, but it's also about values and transformation. So this moon is all about the transformation of our values. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen overnight. Now, you personally might be noticing new things coming to light in your subconscious or in your life, or you're just aware of new things, because that's what full moons can do, especially in Scorpio. We tend to have an illumination that comes up from the subconscious. But it can also be secrets being revealed, although with the Venus square to Neptune getting ready to go retrograde, I still think we have to be really careful about the information that we're taking in and believing, because the Venus retrograde square to Neptune is an indication of delusion and illusions and deceit, deception. So you have to be really careful not to assume that the information is accurate. But when it comes to this full moon, we can actually trust something about our values, okay? And so with it in Taurus in the second house, a resource house, and the earth, Taurus is an earth sign. It's all about getting in touch with what we value and understanding what we value, both on a personal level, a national level, a global level. You know, how do we relate to the earth? How do we access resources? How do we do that in accordance with our values? And right now, we are truly in a process of transformation. Now, the 8th house, Scorpio, is the house of transformation. They're both still resource houses. These are usually personal resources, and the 8th house is joint resources. But they also have a psychological effect. And the psychological effect of the 8th house is transformation, deep psychological transformation. And what's interesting about this particular full moon is what's happening with the other planets. For example, Mercury is conjunct the sun, and Mercury has to do with the way we think about things. And this Sun-Mercury conjunction is making a trine to Pluto, which is the ruler of 8th house Scorpio. So this is all about transformation of values. And we have been seeing this get activated ever since the new moon eclipse in Cancer Capricorn. Actually, the new moon eclipse was in Capricorn on December 25th and 26th, 2019. And then we had the January eclipse on January 10th that was conjunct the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which was exact just 2 days after the full moon eclipse. Now, this is profound, and we knew something big was coming. And not only that, but we knew that Uranus was going to bring massive disruptions here in the 7th house of resources. So we are seeing those things happen. And this full moon is leading us to the transformation of our values, because what we're seeing are the weaknesses in the system and the infrastructure, particularly in the supply chains, and even more importantly, in the food supply chains, because human beings cannot live very long without food. And so, no matter what you think about, the kind of food you should eat or shouldn't eat, regardless of that, everybody has to eat some food. I mean, it's life sustaining. We really can't live without it, not for very long. So this is essential to life, and not just to life itself, but to our well-being and our health. And so the disruptions that are coming up that are showing us the weaknesses in the system and in the infrastructure and in the supply chains tells us that something needs to be reevaluated and transformed. And so again, you may be doing this on a personal level with your own personal values and transforming them. But we are also doing this on a national level and probably even on a global level. And so we have relied on supply chains that stretch around the globe. And the problem with that is that now we are seeing the weakness in them. We're seeing how they're breaking down. But it's also making us aware of the fact that our food supply is almost 100% dependent on fossil fuels, not just for the production of the food, but also for the transportation of the food. And if, some people are starting to become more and more aware of catastrophic global climate change, then we need to be thinking about changing the way that we produce food and the way that we supply it to the people who need to eat it. And, that's pretty much us. I mean, obviously we can be thinking about other people outside our borders as well, but first we need to think about the people in our borders, and we need to think about how we're going to feed ourselves as a nation and as states and as communities and as individuals. And that's why in a recent video called Uranus Food Disruptions, I was talking about how important it is for us to be thinking about our food that we eat and where we get it. And, thinking, more outside the box, thinking more creatively, like maybe we could start to grow some food. And that might be really scary to some people because they think, well, I don't own land. I don't know how to grow food. But as I was saying, you can try a lot of new exciting, creative ideas, such as this kitchen counter gardening, container gardening. There's also a lot of times you can find urban gardening, community gardening. I used to live in Denver. We had Denver Urban Gardens. I don't know how they're being impacted by the current events, but I'm guessing that as the city opens up more and more, people will be able to go back and garden again as long as they are social distancing. And not only is it good in terms of being able to produce some of your own food, but it teaches you how to grow food. And it does take practice. There's a lot to learn. So it would be good for us to start practicing that now, because we don't know how much our food supply is going to continue to be disrupted through this process. So I think that these are the values that are being transformed. I think they have everything to do with these resource houses and with the earthiness of Taurus and the earthiness of Capricorn and the trine of Pluto, which is all about transformation and empowerment. Can we empower ourselves by transforming our habits, by transforming our values, by thinking deeply about the problems, and instead of trying to figure out who's to blame, because I think that's a Venus square to Neptune kind of thing. It's like you can never really find out the truth about that. And what are you going to do when you figure it out? I mean, the idea of trying to attack another country because we think they're to blame is not going to lead to a better life for anyone. In fact, it could lead to very, very, very scary futures. So I don't think that's the direction we want to move in. I think we want to move in the direction of self-reliance and sustainability, and consider different agricultural techniques and local gardening, local farming, urban gardening, community gardening. There are food co-ops. I mean, there have been so many different ways of producing food locally and organically that in a way we relied on these international and global food supply chains just because it was easy. You could just walk into the grocery store and get what you needed, and it was convenient and easy, but it's not necessarily healthy. In fact, the food that we grow ourselves locally, or if we buy from local co-ops, local farms, farmers markets, other supply chains that are local and organic, it's actually healthier for us, and it's better for the environment because we're not relying so heavily on fossil fuels, and it's better for the local community and local economies. So I do think that people are going to be seriously reevaluating all of these things about resources, how we relate to the earth, how we feed ourselves, how we supply ourselves with resources, how we access resources, and finding new ways that are just going to be fundamentally more satisfying and healthier and better for us, better for the earth, better for communities. So this will lead to some transformations of values. So I think this is, again, happening on both a personal level. So you can look at your own life and see, are you experiencing a transformation of values? Have you noticed that things that used to matter to you, they seem to be falling away? Like they just don't seem as meaningful to you anymore. They don't appeal to you anymore. And you're kind of awakening to new ways of thinking with this full moon, illuminating your consciousness, illuminating new ways of thinking, new information, and leading to this transformation about the way you relate to your body, to the earth, how you feed yourself, how you access resources, and what you value. And then, kind of like extrapolating that out to a national level and a community level and a state level and even a global level, and thinking about the rippling impact of all of our actions. So this is a very favorable full moon because of its trine and sextile to Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn, and also the trine and sextiles forming to Neptune. So Neptune can be very visionary and very heart-centered, very compassionate. And I think that's part of it too. What we're taking into account is that, the impacts of this global fossil fuel-based agriculture and supply chains has not been very compassionate for ourselves or for the earth or for other human beings. So we're starting to reconsider and reassess and transform these values. So I hope that this was really like illuminating for you and give you something to think really deeply about, so that you can start considering how you might be reassessing values and transforming values in your personal life, in your community, and at the national level and at the global level, and how this can ultimately empower us. That's what Pluto is all about: transformation and empowerment. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. And again, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I hope you'll subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. Click like on this video and share with friends and family. And feel free to leave your comments. And also, if you want more face-to-face interaction with me and some exclusive content, I'm putting exclusive content on my Patreon. So you can just click on Patreon, come over there, join me, And there are gifts for both $5 and $10 tier, a free birth chart, and for the $10 tier, a free ebook. And also you can join our group Zoom sessions over there at Patreon. All right, so I hope to see you over there, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.